What is science? Science, listen, there's 100,000 millions of definitions. They all go all over the place. But in essence, is trying to describe reality. That is the essence, okay? Don't go around the wordings. I know what it is. We hide a lot of simple things in the complex terminologies. Science is trying to describe what is real, what is reality. Guess what? So is the Bible. The Bible is also doing the same thing. The goal of the Bible is describe a reality. The problem about what we know as science today, which is different from the past, remember they used to call them magics and stuff like that, which they did not separate the material reality from spiritual reality. As scientists were navigating both spheres. Today, they ignore completely the spiritual reality and they just explain everything from basic mechanical fundaments or like mechanisms, right? The Bible is the only book that do not just address the reality of material things, but also address the reality of spiritual things. It gives us way more understanding, more broader picture of what reality is. It's not just matter, but there is also a spiritual reality. But not only that, one thing I noticed is like you can read any science book. Oftentimes, they're stuck in time. Science, if it's history, is going to stuck in the past. It doesn't move in time. I know it may be complex what I'm trying to explain. It doesn't move in time. Even when they are trying to address something in the future, it's always kind of a prediction that is never certain. But the Bible, if you read it very well, you will feel like it's moving you across time. You go in the past, you're in the present, and you're living in the future all in once. It's telling you, and it never fails. It's the only, like I'm not going to mention the name, but we have like a lot of debate now in news. Oh no, well, science is changing, and we had one knowledge before, now we have a new knowledge before, and blah blah blah. The Bible don't behave that way. What the Bible say is, was, and it will be, and it happens. But books of science, biology, which is one of them I read the most, it's always changing. We know about cells 20 years ago. Today we know, oh yeah, it changed. Maybe the knowledge was wrong. We updated. That's why we are constantly updating the books. We don't update the Bible. The Bible said that in the last days there's going to be increasing earthquake and everything, basically saying things will go toward a state of more confusion and disorganization. This is called second law of thermodynamics, by the way. But the Bible already said the world is going to go from good to bad. Exactly, my brother. You see what I'm saying? So, and it's true. It's real. We are decaying, not just physically, morally, in every all other aspect. Like, just look at the news. It's way worse today. Like, it's like, just like the current news of this week, if you're watching medias, you'll be like, it's like, imagine a mother, for instance, killing their 3 kids is a news. In the past, like, you couldn't even fathom that. It's like, yeah, there was murdering. People were killing each other. But imagining a mom killing, not just 1 kid, 2, 3, and then come out and say, like, I'm just using an example. I don't know much about this. I'm just trying to help us to come to reality, to understand how morally we are actually just degrading. And this is the reason why we're going to jump in here on the little secret that is going on. Like I said, it's brace yourself. Look, the introduction already took me, I don't know, 20 minutes. So imagine, we have 2 more hours to go, okay? But I'll do my best. Yes, exactly. So if you guys make sure you have some food or something like, but I'll do my best. I promise I'll do my best to go very quickly. Now, again, there's maybe a lot of terminology like you see in the title that may not be familiar. I'll do my best to explain it, and I try to put as many images to try to relate to it. Okay, all right. So the title is Neurobiology of Sin. Oftentimes in church, we speak about spiritual battle. Simply, we remain in the philosophical aspect of it. And we lose the touch of real thing that is happening to us and into our body right now. just like the scripture reading will say. For instance, now be very careful. This scripture reading may not come across right away like related to the topic, but in the book of Genesis, you basically have the beginning of everything, okay? Let's start with this scripture reading and extrapolate what's going on. So, what happened here? God first created the man, well, created the planet and everything was good. And then he made man in his image and blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, man decided to say, God is not enough. We got to find an alternative. And they believe in the alternative. And the alternative resulted into something. And this is the first curse that we see in the Bible, the first situation of from perfection to bad things. Okay, so the Lord said to the serpent, because you have done this, cursed are you above all livestock and all wild animals. You will crawl on your belly, and you will eat dust, and all the days of your life, all the days of your life, and I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offsprings and hers. He will crush your head, and you will strike his heel. This is happening in a context after man decided to find an alternative from God. Pay attention on the language I'm using. And then God came and looked for them, and men they were hiding themselves. And the first thing God is, once he found them, asked them questions. Adam, where are you? Well, I'm here. I saw you, I heard your voice, but I realized I'm naked. So I hid. See, here's a problem though. That word naked there is not necessarily because he was naked physically, because he was already covering himself anyway. He was naked of mind, and he hid. It's like when you're guilty, right? You're not gonna, if you do something wrong, you don't want to face the person if you really still have the ability to feel shame and guilt. That's something that not everybody have. You can lose that, and we'll see it in a little bit. And then they started blaming one another. Remember, Adam said the girl said the serpent. But you see in that conversation, I'm not going to go there for the sake of the time, but you can go Genesis 3. You have all the thing. God did not ask any question to the serpent. He did only ask questions to man and the female. And to the serpent, he went straight to this. You got it? No conversation. And look who he cursed. He cursed the serpent. But when then he moved on, later on in the subsequent passages, he then went on to say to the women. He went to the order because men justify themselves in a different order. First man, then the woman, then the serpent. When God comes to talk, he starts with the serpent, then the woman, and then man. Serpent, you'll do this. Women, you have pain. And man, curse. The second word curse only comes there. Curse is who? He didn't say curse is the man. He said curse is the ground. The only curse he is to the serpent. You got it? Yes, it's interesting that man was not necessarily directly cursed. God did curse the ground. It's Bible's word. You read it as it is. I'm just paraphrasing, but you can open it. You'll see it. God did not say curse is you, Adam, for not obeying my voice. He said curse is the ground. And it's going to be difficult for you to eat now. And he said, you used to eat fruits, now you're going to eat herbs. And things go on. Now, look at the verses 15. That's the most important thing. And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers. He will crush your head, and you strike his heel. Here's the point. We all know that the serpent is the synonym of Satan, right? Serpent in the garden, physical serpent, was the wisest animal, the most intelligent animal that God created. Today we know it's the monkey. But in that point was the serpent. That's why was a reference. Satan himself was the most intelligent being God has ever created. You got it? So let's go back to Satan, because this doesn't apply although we see most of the things that happen here happen actually to the physical serpent, but this is actually applying to Satan. But the point about that I want to tell you is this. How many of you have seen Satan face to face? Only two human beings had that ability to fight Satan face to face. I mean, we all fight his angels. But Satan specifically designed a problem for the woman and for Jesus. These are two people that confronted the real mastermind face to face. The women fell, right? Other than that, my sister, you, Andrea, me, Nelson, we have not had the ability, our senses have not captured him. Your eyes could not, because he's a master of deceit. He has a high-tech stealth apparatus. He's actually here, but he used high-tech. Look at the word I'm going to use, because I remember what I thought about my grandparents? I'm coming from a village. Too much knowledge, they would equate that with witchcraft. In fact, witchcraft is Ellen G. White even described it, it's a higher knowledge. Like, if I do what I did in the lab, and I go say to my grandma, hey, I created these things in the lab, she's like, that's witchcraft too. You see what I'm saying? We have the power to manipulate certain elements of nature, like being able to talk to somebody who's 1,000 miles away from me, or travel in less than 2 hours from here to whatever, where I'm coming from, for instance. In the past, the distance I traveled would have taken 4, 5, 6 days or more. So just imagine look at this. The world, as we know according to the Bible, has been existing for like 6,000 of years. Men have accumulated knowledge just for 6,000 years, and this is all we can do. We can already do all these things. Imagine Satan has been around for millions of years. Imagine how much knowledge he accumulated about the elements of nature. So yes, he would have a higher knowledge on how to create stealth in order for you not to see him. First, because if he shows up face to face, he will have no chance against you, trust me. Because once you see his miserable face, you definitely would not want to deal. It's true. He is very miserable. Look, I'm not going to delay. This is a good thing. I just want us to see the enmity part. But he is cursed. You don't want to see a cursed person. And that man is cursed, has no, that angel is cursed, has no hope, is depressed, and God is almost completely absent from. That's why he's completely evil. You don't want to be in that stage. That's why he envies most of us, because we have one thing, regardless of what your life is going through right now, you have one thing he doesn't have. It's called hope. That is translated sometimes in faith. Even if you die, you are sleeping. That's what we spoke in a little bit. Now, again, in order to understand what's going on with us, we still need to go see what was normal. So when I was at school, they taught me, if you want to understand the abnormal, you need to understand what is normal first. Now, we are talking about not easy topic here. This is not easy. I really want you to navigate with me, and I will try, and if I step onto something, please ask questions, right? I don't want this to be one way, because there's going to be things that is going to be probably complicated. That is the debate, part of it we had in the lesson studies, the debate about the state of being, right? There's so many philosophies. Science today preach that there is only one dimension, right? You are just a product of biochemical reaction, and you just an unintended, guided, whatever reasoning ability that has no purpose. You read any book, it will tell you that, right? And some will tell you, well, there is a body and there is a spirit, they are in separate entity, so therefore what you do in your body, you see, there's a lot of philosophy, like dangerous one, especially when you see the movies today, which is another propaganda machine. Look, the Avengers movies will tell you even way more crazy ideas, like the multiverse possibly, or you have another person of you in another universe that can sometimes influence your thinking pattern. Be very careful. Satan is active. He's very active. Be careful with your brain. Now, I want to first of all make us all to understand one thing. Then God say, let us make man in, the computer is a little far, but let me come close. Let us make man in our likeness so that they may rule. Look at the highlighted words here. Oh, yeah, can't read all the way down. But they say, images, make man into our image, likeness, so that he can do what? Rule over what? The creatures that God has created, right? God made us to rule. Oh, thank you, brother. So, yeah, God made us to rule. Therefore, when we sin, we lost the ability to rule, and somebody else want to rule over us. That's the first clue that the first verse was trying to say. I will put enmity between you and the female, because once Satan was able to convince men to follow his idea, he really believed, now I have I have total control of these beings. And the first act of mercy that God did is like, I'm not going to allow that to happen. I'm not going to allow, although man has forsaken his ability to rule and gave it to you, that's why he's the ruler of this world. God say, I'll put an enmity. You will not be able to fully control everybody. But the other point is on the verse 7, it say, then the Lord God formed man. Look, let's do some math here. God formed man from what? Dust of the ground and what? Let's do some math. Dust plus breathing from God equals what? Living, what's the word? Living soul. Here is already he's already destroying one of the biggest lies that science teaches today, that the soul is separated from the body and blah, 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 like a separate entity. Your body and your mind are one thing. It's the body and the mind together. The breathing, that breathing is a mysterious breathing, only came from God. And we can speculate that that is where our ability to reasoning came from. Because the mind is the only thing you really can't get it. You can't get around it. You can't come out with any. Consciousness is the biggest debate in science today. Okay? This is one of the divine aspects that came direct from God. He did not just say, let there be. He said, I'm making you, and direct essence from him to everybody here. That separates you from any other creature in this planet so far. But the point is, he did not say the thing that came from God did not linger around for 2 seconds or before it came to the body. To become a living soul, you need to combine both together. You got it? So there is no soul outside of the body according to this statement of the Bible. It works in one, and I will show you how it works as one. All other theory, reincarnation, doesn't work. It's already destroyed. We're reading literally how it is. So now we can say, we're not going to talk about the body today. Today we are going to talk about the brain. But it's important to understand the origins first. We can see the origin of our reasoning ability is somewhere hiding between that breathing, that breath of life that came from God. Got it? So then, all right, got stuck. Okay, let me read this quote for a second just to help us contextualize. That's from Ellen G. White, The Education, books, The Education. It says, when Adam came from the Creator's hand, he bore in his physical, mental, and spiritual nature a likeness of his maker. Now he's like, okay, brother, now there is a spirit there. Spiritual, physical, mental, and spiritual. I want to highlight here that sometimes reasoning and mind and spirit is interchanging. Because at that time, you have to have in mind, people didn't have enough knowledge about how the brain works. Neuroscience did not exist in the time of Moses, okay? So even Ellen G. White didn't, in her time, science was not that advanced. So like I said, they often borrowed from current vocabulary of their time. And the verse just underneath will show us that. Through sin, the divine likeness, here's the thing. Sin, what did it do? We saw we were made in the image of God, but sin did well-knit, obliterated. It did not completely, almost obliterated what? Physics, your body, okay? Weaken your mental capacity, lessen his spiritual vision. Look, spiritual vision, this term is basically describing an ability to perceive something. It's not saying spiritual dimension. It's vision. So interchanging with what we call reasoning, and which is a little more complex, all right? Not today. I'll talk to it about in another day. He became subject to death. A life of probation was then granted to restore that image that was lost, to bring him back to the perfection which he was created, and to promote the development of the body, mind, and soul. Again, language there, linguistic and context, is like making it's like the Cartesian dialect, or the body is different from, René Descartes is a philosopher who described that the mind and the body are different. So basically, it's saying, oh yeah, body, mind, and soul. But we already know a soul is the completeness of all these two together. You are a living soul when you have a body and a mind moving at the same time, okay? I'll show you in a little bit more. Okay, that's the divine purpose, restoring what was lost. We have something in our body, an organ in our body that specifically does that work, to connect body, mind, and soul in one go. That is called the nervous system. Your brain creates stimulus to allow me to talk right now, to move. It's called motor function, right? But also your brain allows you to reason. And it's the organ that allows you to access God, okay? So it's the bridge, it's the only organ. Your liver doesn't do that. Your heart only pumps, it doesn't have no feelings, okay? So these are all the organs in the body, if you notice well, they're actually working to help the brain. They should be working to help the brain. That's probably the best statement to put it that way. It's no longer that way in sinful nature. But it should, especially the fight between the stomach and the brain. That's probably another topic. But the nervous system is the organ that is half natural, half metaphysical. There's a lot in this that we don't know about. It's the most complex thing a human being have ever observed. It's not the galaxies. It's not whatever they're seeing in physics. That's nothing. One brain cell, what it does will baffle you. One brain cell, right? So I don't even know, that's why I say this is a very difficult topic for me, because we don't know much about it. But God have been good to us to give us enough to understand the correlation. Therefore, it's also the most protected organ in your body. It's the central nervous system especially is surrounded by the hardest structures that we have in our body. We call bones. You have a whole bone in your skull. Your whole bone in the spinal cord. You know what I'm saying? So it's very well protected and very well nourished. You mess up with that structure, we'll be in a lot of problem. Okay? Now, this is, remember what I said, we don't really fight Satan physically. I'm trying to be direct and real. Yes, we believe in him, but he doesn't come to me and say, hey, let's have a boxing match. I wish that would be the case. I really wish that was that easy. But the guy is smart enough. And as we're going to see, Ellen G. White actually described that he actually have, if Satan is one thing, if he has a profession, he's two things. He is, number one, a lawyer, number two, a neuroscientist. Yeah. What do you think that Satan has learned? How he does it? How does he outsmart us? Not simply because he has resources. Yes, he has a lot of power, but also he uses our own instinct against us. Our own things that we already have against us. He just manipulates us, as I'm going to show you in a little bit. And that's how he is way more successful. He doesn't even need to show up. He just needs to create a condition. Now, quickly to the brain. The bigger bulk in the head is the brain. It has 2 hemispheres, 5 lobes, right? There's a lot to know about it, but I want to talk about 2 structures, right? Right in front, if you can see this part here, is the part that I am interested to talk about today. And the other part is underneath here. You can see in this big image here. It's the other part of it. It's a little small nucleus. We call it amygdala. Oh man, you don't want to play with that one. That one is the one that causes the most problem in the brain. Together, they were supposed to work together. The frontal and the amygdala, they are supposed to work together because them two together, they are the one that creates what we know as behavior. Behavior is the part of you that I can see, right? If these 2 areas come together in a good environment, should come together and produce behavior. And the behavior produce what? Character. And it is the character that is going to be judged in the conflict of life or death. We got it? So therefore, it's important for us to pay attention in these 2 structures. I just want you to have a visual idea. There's a lot more to talk about it. Let me try to dive it a little bit. I think we have a little more about it. Let's talk about the amygdala, for instance. It's a little nucleus that it activates as soon as you are born and is almost fully functional. The brain is remarkably interesting. When you're a baby, it's developing. A lot of things, even moving, baby don't work because the brain did not connect yet with the rest of the body, so he have no balance, right? But that amygdala is firing right in the beginning. The baby is able to detect your emotional expression, fear, anger, whatever. He get it. 1 month old, we'll get it. Just pay good attention. They get it. So that's the amygdala. What is their function, especially in the early stage? Yeah, they regulate what we call emotions. Now be careful, emotions, every emotions can lead to feelings, but not all the feelings are emotions. We can go that in one day, okay? So emotions are the building block that are designed to guide you to survival, okay? They are designed to maintain you alive. The main purpose is to respond to situations that allow you to survive. For instance, anger, fear. And it does it by 3 basic mechanisms: fight, flight, or reproduction. These are the 3 main things that allow us to be alive today in a fallen state. Let me go back a little bit. I don't know. For the second time, let me freestyle that very quickly. When God created man and Adam and put him in the garden and everything was perfect, Adam was not worried about survive. He was living. He didn't need to survive. He was living. You see the difference? And Adam didn't need to look. And one of the things that makes you to be alive is the ability to have pleasure. In the Garden of Eden, they had no worries that could make them worried about. They were living the life. They did not, so their emotions were somehow under control of reasoning because they didn't have to worry about survival. But in a fallen state, we understood what God said, certainly you will die. Even if you're lying to yourself in your mind, your body knows you're dying. Therefore, everything we do from behavioral point of view in a fallen state is just to assert our survivability. We're trying to remain alive. The instinct of self-preservation is probably one of the, if not the strongest, that a human body can feel, right? Instinct, passion, emotion, and feeling is the same category, just different complexities, okay? That's another topic for another day. Invite me more, and I'll just be going on to those topics. But today, for the sake of time, we cannot go to that. Yeah, we have the behaviors and the drive for survival, like eating, fighting, and stuff like that. But also body balance, like homeostasis, and everything that makes the body relate to the environment. It requires an emotional stimulus. Now, what is the prefrontal cortex? That is the part of your brain that you can start make sense, right? It's related for judgment, reasoning, higher mental ability, control of impulses, self-regulation, etc., etc., etc. So emotion come like a wave, and the prefrontal cortex say, well, maybe anger is not adequate for this particular circumstance. Like me being angry here, like, ah! My prefrontal cortex is out and say, Nelson, there's no need. You see what I say? There's like, thank God, I hope it's working. So it's helping me to balance the amygdala. Do not underestimate that, okay? Pay attention to the amygdala. So how does the body works? Okay, the way things work is like, you have receptors all over your body. The receptor, for instance, from hearing is capturing the sound. Sound is being transduced and transforming into an auditory stimulus into your ears. That auditory stimulus, depending on what or how am I saying things, that stimulus will evoke an emotional response. If I'm rude to you, you'll be mad, or you will experience anger, right? Or if I'm being nice, you may experience joy or some form of positive emotion, right? But once that emotion is being processed, it's sent straight. Here's where the problem is. Usually, the emotion is processed, like we saw in the amygdala. And the amygdala sends the information. One is called the direct pathway, which is straight to the body, or sent to the indirect pathway, which is straight to the frontal cortex in order to be reviewed and see what's the appropriate behavior or response should be given. But unfortunately, the first one is what happened the most. Oftentimes, especially in today's day, most of the stimuli hit the emotions and you want to act. You just want to react. People you saw that, like especially our little boys today, teenagers, they just react. Or you spoke about my mama, ooh, right? Straight, it's just reaction. They don't even think, okay, if they use the word prefrontal cortex will say, fighting only gives you worse outcomes, never gives you the best outcomes in all of that, unless you actually cornered, but it often gives you low. So if somebody spoke about your mama, you may just walk away. That's for prefrontal cortex, but this is not activated, and I will show you what's the problem there. That's what we're talking about. So it's sends information straight to the bodies in the little part that we're not going to talk about today, but it's called hypothalamus, and then that's sent into hypophysis, and a lot of hormones flows to your body, especially adrenaline, and you are like, I'm ready to go. Then adrenaline damps your ability to feel pain, and you can like jump and feel Superman for a second until once everything goes away and then frontal cortex kick in. And if you still have the ability to feel shame, which is, in my opinion, a positive feeling, then you can regulate and inhibit that boom impulse that comes in. So this is how we work, okay? Understand that framework, and now we will jump into the neurobiology of sin. Amygdala processes information and then just shoot. You want it to shoot to the prefrontal cortex rather than to shoot straight to the body and start punching and throw hands all over the place. Okay? Now, also amygdala and prefrontal cortex, they coordinate to do memories and etc. All of this will help you guide your behavior. Now, what is this? How relevant is this to spiritual things that we are talking? As you can see, I'm trying to go quick. Look, in Genesis 1:31, they say, and God saw that everything he created, behold, it was very good. And there was everything, and there was morning and evening, the sixth day. Okay? God created everything good. This is a little digression for us to I want to situate us into something. When everything was good, the higher order of the brain, which is the higher part of the brain, the cortex. Let me go back for a second. I'm sorry, I need to explain this. Let me find an image. Okay, you see the thing in green? Just look at the image. Forget about the symptom, the writing. The green thing is what makes you different from the rest of animals. If you see everybody's brain, let me make this digression. Most animal brain is mostly from here down. The most primitive type of animals, like reptiles, they will have only this part here, like the brainstem and the cerebellum, just a little bit. That's why in a scientific term, sometimes they used to call it, before it was named brainstem, they used to call it reptilian brain. Okay? Now, what the limbic system, let me borrow another image here for a second. The limbic system, which is this one, amygdala is just one of them. There's a lot more structure, but for the sake of time, we're not going to go there. But amygdala is the most important, okay, for the topic we are talking today. It has nucleus and a lot of things, and has also another thing called hippocampus. All of them together, they have different names. Sometimes it's called diencephalus, or mostly known also in the past like as a mammalian brain. So it means all mammals, all animals, man, cow, everything that breastfeed, their brain have this, all the way from here up to here. Is it making sense what I'm going? I hope you're getting what I'm going. That's called mammalian brain, which means everything that happened from here down is purely animalistic. Make sense now? Purely animal instinct. Animals feel fear too. Animals want to eat too. Animals want to reproduce too. And animals also do feel emotions. We got it? Now, what makes us a little different from here is this. If you analyze everybody, but again, like I said, we have not enough time, but I would like one day to just show you difference of brains, animals, and stuff like that. Man is different because he has this called prefrontal cortex. It's the biggest in proportion, in size, even bigger compared to the whales or whatever. We have a lot more prefrontal cortex. And that is the site where really morality and judgment and everything like we say. This is not even biblical. This is science function, what science is telling. But I will show you correlation with what the Bible tells too. Okay? You can tell by what you can read there, there's some kind of moral activity. And morality is an expression of spiritual aspects, right? Spiritual things and moral things are almost the same thing, right? Okay, now you understood that. When God created man, God was present every day. Man was able to behold his creator on a daily basis. What part of the brain was he used? Let's see if you guys are paying attention. Which part of the brain? The prefrontal. Because it allows to see things through morally, not just emotionally, and like God said, come and let's reason together. When God comes, he reasons with you. Okay? He doesn't just emotionally activate you in a bad way. So the prefrontal cortex was controlling the rest of the actions of the body. Basically, your head was actually in control of your body. Animals, oftentimes, the body is in control of everything. They just want to eat, right? And they don't make moral judgment. Men, we are different because we have that ability. So when God created everything, that was how good things are. So the Bible say that sin is the distortion of that order. You got it? What is sin? It is the transgression of the law. What is law? Law is the character of God. If you transgress the law, you are basically removing God away. If God is the only power enough to stimulate your prefrontal cortex to act correctly, and you kick him out, then something else will have more power over that part of the brain. Is it making sense? So, what is also God? God is goodness. What God's bring? What we know, like the fruit of the Holy Spirit and all that, goodness, joy, peace, and everything. When you are in the presence of God, you're not going to feel depressed. That doesn't exist. And nobody can tell me, oh yeah, but that's another topic. We can talk about depression. I can make another slide for that in another day. And I have actually a lot to talk about it anyway. But when you're in the presence of God, negative affections do not work. It's impossible. So only positive joy and stuff like that. But sin, when you remove God, there is no God, then everything else works. If there is no God, your prefrontal cortex is blunted, is blurred, can't function properly. You can't make right judgment. And of course, don't even just think, oh, brother is just saying. Just look at places where they removed God. Like communist countries or houses that they completely do not follow any single. You won't be able to keep even the law of the country. Make sense? Yes. So, God equals goodness, order, life, and purpose. What is sin? You take goodness away, you take purpose away, now you're a purposeless, mindless, unguided, just bunch of cells and proteins moving around. That's exactly what evolution teaches us, isn't it? Yes, unguided and purposeless. I remember sitting in the lab one day, I will never forget that. Me and my professor, and I believe he was one of the smartest people I actually came across. And we had a debate. And I remember in the lab, I had a lot of brains there. We used to dissect the different parts of the brain and blah, blah, blah. And he trying to convince me that Nelson, just imagine, after seeing all those things in the microscope and stuff like that, he said, Nelson, this has no purpose. And we were debating, and he really and this is a common belief, especially in the field of neuroscience, is that the brain is just there. No purpose and unguided. And I humbly, because before get slapped, I was like, but professor, if your brain is just a bunch of, or your thought is just a bunch of unguided impulses, how do you even trust what you say is not just simply an unguided thing? Why do you even trust what you're saying? And then he got mad, because you see what I'm saying? Yes, that's what sin is actually trying to do. No purpose and disorder, which is destructive behavior. But thank God we have what we call the fruits of the Spirit, which help us to restore that. That's another topic. But look, the fruits of the Spirit helps you restore the function of your prefrontal cortex. Look at this. Now, although you see love, joy, these are feelings. Again, emotions can produce feelings. Let me give you a quick explanation. Amygdala produces emotions. That emotion is sent straight to the prefrontal cortex. Prefrontal cortex assesses that, reasons through it, and gives it a meaning. Now that's a feeling. Is it complicated? Maybe we'll explain it in another day. But if it's just happening under your body, you call it instinct and stuff like that, right? Instinct for survival and things like that. Again, what we just saw, evil is absence of good. You take God away, you took goodness away. If you took goodness, then there is nothing. Evil is not an independent substance. There is no good and evil. Got it? So basically, if you say, if you think that evil is a substance, it's the same you saying Satan and Jesus are just counterpart of opposite power, like they are a match. It's never like that. The Bible doesn't even say. Satan is not even a match, not even come close to that. By the way, you see, Jesus just said to him, you curse, this is what is going to happen to you. There's not much. Sin is not a thing. It's like light. It's like darkness is the absence of light. You remove light from here, we're all going to be darkness and bumping on each other, right? So just like in the Tower of the Babel, God removed coherence, and they started fighting each other. You see what I'm saying? Which is coherence, understanding the same language, right? That's exactly what happened. So if you understand that by removing God, you have disorder, then you have, I have this chart. I tried my best to create a best image, but just look at the little chart here. When there's no love, you hate. When there's no truth, you lie. Injustice happens if you're not just. If you're not courageous, you're a coward. What is coward? Cowardice, absence of courage. Is it making sense? So, let us from today on not thinking that there is good and evil. It's simply any absence of good gives rise to evil. You see what I'm saying? Okay, I am not going to read that. I did that if anybody would want to stay with the slide or take a picture. I just want to show that the Bible actually has a lot of verses supporting all this. Although the Bible did not have the linguistic resources to use, like saying prefrontal cortex, limbic cortex, they didn't know that, right? The knowledge, it's like they didn't know nothing about cars. They know about horsepower, but not the way we know. Is it making sense? Yeah. Most of us know horsepower by driving a car, but Moses knew it differently. So, yes, it matters what you're saying, okay? Yes, now the scientists will say, and this is a debate, oh yes, well, neuroscience, you can't say that that's what, for instance, the beast causes the people to receive mark in their right hand and forehead. Well, you can't say that the forehead was actually saying the prefrontal cortex. But, well, listen, where's the image? Anyway, if you can see, like, the frontal cortex is just right there. Of course, that's exactly the point here. There was no linguistic representation. Now, we have that resource. We can put a language in it. We can put a name on it. And all the book, all the Old Testament, it's mostly is in Revelation, but Old Testament also says about it, right? And always makes, when God is trying to guide their people to the righteous path, if he's going to make an anatomical reference, he says here. Or he would use term between your eyes, which is where your prefrontal cortex is, right? We can easily, in a biblical neurosciences, if I would call it, say, yes, this is also a topographic representation of what that organ, what that function is. What about the amygdala? Yes, we have a lot of information. Again, linguistic barrier. It tells the function, it just didn't use the name amygdala. But that's the stumbling block for scientists today. Well, I'm sure if somebody sees that in YouTube, I'm going to be, decapitated in the scientific world, but I don't care. We just have to say the reality. Did you guys notice that? For the sake of time, I may read two. This thing is blocking, but let me read what I can read. Whoever is slow in anger has a great understanding. Right? So that means somebody who has a lot of anger cannot, is lack of understanding, but it's true. When you're actually mad, and everybody has, I'm sure we've already experienced that. When you're really, really mad, can you think? You don't think when you're mad. You say things that sometimes you're wondering, God, did I say that? How? That was not me, right? So, yeah. Oh, thank you, Jack. Yeah, so there is all these verses, and like, okay, good. Like Psalm 56.3 say, when I'm afraid, which is fear, it's an emotion, but if you trust in God, that fear goes away. You see? So it's saying that if prefrontal cortex is activated, it reduces the activity of the amygdala. Okay? Like self-control, connection, desire, reward. One of the secrets that is way more famous, the thing that amygdala does best, is the addiction part of it. The neuroscience of addiction, like drug addiction, sex addictions, lust, all these sins, especially the capital ones. Remember, other than pride, all sins that are named in the Bible are almost bodily related. Other than pride, which of course will also express himself bodily, but everything else that Paul and other apostles have is bodily related. Lust, related. Gluttony, food. You see, bodily survival mechanism. But pride is deeply spiritual and governs everything else. That's another topic. Let's jump this for the sake of the time, but you have all these. You can take a picture and have it all. We also have Proverbs, which explain the mechanism of if in the right way you think, you choose, and you act. And the combination of your actions is what you will make your character about. All right. Now, here's the part I want us to look at. It says here in the Mind, Character, and Personality book from Ellen G. White says, when the mind is not under the direct influence of the Spirit of God, Satan can mold it as he chooses. See, here's the problem. We actually have no choice, though. There is no self-will volition capable enough to overrule the powerful storm from amygdala. Nothing. Trust me, you will not beat yourself. You can't. The biggest enemy you're fighting is not politicians or anybody else. It's you. It's your cravings. That is the biggest thing. Like, if we understand that, the world will be a better place. You will have less problem with people in the street. If every time you wake up, you realize, God, I have just sinned 100 times. Please, I need your mercy. You will have less to do what Brother Paul said yesterday about me, right? So the controlling influence of the mind depends upon what governs it. You either are for God or for Satan. Unfortunately, in this existence, you only have two masters. You can't say, oh no, I'll do both things. No, you're either serving one or another. You can't do both, right? So you just choose who's going to control you. So as we saw, and we'll see in a little bit, God controls you to the activation of your prefrontal cortex. Satan will control you to the activation of the animalistic instincts. That's why everything, if you see a sinful behavior, somebody who's fully given, and compared to the behavior of an animal, no difference. For instance, promiscuity. It's a sinful behavior, right? Just look at a dog. Have you ever seen a pack of dogs? I don't know what's the term for a pack of dogs. When they are all together and there's female dogs, no different. No different. So when you're not controlling your passions, you actually do what the lower animals do. And that's what the degrading of the image of God is, to make you purely primitive in your instincts, rather elevate you in the renewing of your mind and observe even more complex, higher things that God is revealing to you. So one more digression I want to give it, maybe I can use a parallel of when you behold things of God, you believe that this world is not all that it is. Because you will say, okay, the complexity of this world is not all, like the Bible described, there's even more complex reality. So your mind grows higher. But if you remove God, then this is all that you can get. And then you will live solely to get everything that the world gives you. Because you lack the vision to transcend the physical barrier that your senses can give you. Got it? All right. Let's see if we go quickly. Ellen White has these books that she wrote. It's called Mind, Character, and Personality, but also the other books like Testimony for the Church. She has a lot of good quotes on describing how Satan actually controls, the mind of the human beings, right? Like, for instance, you say Satan controls people through thoughts, suggestions, habit, deception, and the influence from one mind upon another. Okay? The later part is very important for us to notice. Okay? But also, as you can see, he seeks to implant his own thoughts. He studies your own weaknesses. There's one thing that is clear. He cannot read your thoughts. He just reads your behavior, just like a psychologist, and we can read people's behavior and predict what they're going to do or say. He also distracts the mind. This is one of the biggest, probably the most successful tool he uses, distraction. And in another topic, if you allow me one day to come back, we'll try to address about the possession of devilish spirit into human brain and describes how there is not an empty chamber that they can go in and do things. No. Some of the things that I'm describing here, this is the way he does. So for instance, in a laboratory settings, we can control, like for instance, if we implant certain electrode in certain part of your brain, we can elicit some kind of reaction, right? We can make your legs to kick, you can make you sing, you know. Yeah, all this happening. And all what I was thinking is like, well, if we humans who have been around only for 20, 30 years, 40, maybe 100 years, can already do that. Imagine a being who had 1 million year plus of existence. Just imagine how much knowledge. So one way of getting knowledge is through accumulation of experience, right? These beings, devils and his companions, have been around for a while, and they're not dumb. They're smart. They're scientists. They studied the human brain. They really went to the lab. Like, that's why I say he's a neuroscientist. He studied. Like, there's a way that I can divide your brain, your left to the right brain, and then make them going just by cutting the corpus callosum, which is a bridge that brings them together, and then you will be a whole different person. You'll do things that it resembles more to a demonic possession, okay? So there is actually things that's what I'm like, well, if we can do that, imagine that guy. What is he doing to our brain? We're still using primitive tools to modulate behavior of human. This guy have, like, I don't know what type of knowledge. So yes, there's nothing empty in your body that people get in, but it's through what we just wrote. Thoughts, suggestions, mind to mind. Okay. Right, we have a lot to read, but I'll leave this for you guys. Somebody want to take a picture? I want to read that. I want to stop on this one thing. Through appetite, Satan controls the mind and being. Appetite is one of those survival mechanisms that I just described. And there's a lot of people destroying their bodies just at the altar of satisfying the cravings of the appetite. And that's just one thing. Gluttony is one of the sins. Lower passions, when I just spoke about sex or other things, lust, whatever you call it, it's enslaving a lot of people, right? Through those mechanisms of lower passions, he studies to overrule, to dominate the higher parts of your brain. That is what's going on biologically speaking. So one example is like, for instance, I think I already said that, but I'll just give a quick example. For instance, amygdala will feel anger, your mind or your heart. Again, like I said, the heart is not what is pumping, it's the center of your feelings. And of course, self-control will allow that not to happen. But in sinful nature, what happened to amygdala is like, no, I will deliberately, because it still involves volition. That's another aspect to talk later. Sorry? Yeah, you can take a picture. Yeah. I designed this slide so that it can be taken a picture. So that's why I'm like, okay, let me have all the information there. So this quote that I wrote, it said, the power of emotions overwhelms rationality. That's why we can't think straight during emotional storm. Like I just said, if you, in road rage oftentimes, we don't think. We don't think that in 2 seconds, as soon as you get home, you will even forget who that person was. You won't even remember what type of car was it. But sometimes we get stuck because we're not reasoning and then eventually lose your life. the animal will predominate. That's a quote from Ellen G. White. Remember what I said? The reptilian brain, the mammalian brain versus the human brain. They are all in one. We all have it. What we distinguish is those levels. But the problem is the lower passion, which unfortunately is the most in terms of like density than the rest of your brain, will always try to control. And then the number 6 unfortunate situation we have is like reason loses control when appetite domains. Listen, it's like trying to, have you ever tried to reason with a young girl or boy who fell in love with a teenager? Trust me, there's no reason. And when you fall, I've been there in that position. When you fall in love, that emotions that come in, all of them, mostly in my situation, most of them were not real. Like did not correspond reality, but my amygdala fantasized everything perfect in that person, and that's exactly so. In the fallen stage, the reason is often dethroned by emotions, and that's a problem. That's the problem we have as a sinful people. Reason is paralyzed, the intellect is benumbed, the animal passions are excited. Okay, if we use temperament, we hold reins of government and control the animal appetite and passion. That's if we are temperate. Now, we are coming to close now. Let me see how long I went. Oh, my goodness, I've been speaking for 1 hour and 30 minutes? I am so sorry. I told you in the beginning, I'll go. There is an example for all what I'm telling in the Bible. Do you guys remember about the Nebuchadnezzar? Yes. So he was all puffed up. He's like, I am this. Pride got into him. Unchecked self-glorification, rejected warnings. All the lower animal passions were taking place. But God in his grace was containing. It's called, Ellen G. White used the term, the restraining power of the Holy Spirit. He oftentimes, me and you are not crazy yet, because the Holy Spirit is still out there, helping us to some extent inhibit certain lower passions that are trying to take hold of the whole brain. But in Nebuchadnezzar, God showed an experiment. He said, okay, you really want to go that way? You really want to have pride and you really want to remove me completely out of your life? Okay, I'm going to go out and you will see. What follows next, if you look at it closely, is Nebuchadnezzar behaving like an animal. And we saw that is the animalistic propensities that our brain does in function. When you are fully given to sin, you end up in that stage. That's the extreme stage that God have it recorded to show us what sin can lead you. The degradation process can lead you up to there. And what was he eating? Do you remember? He was eating grass. He lost the ability to distinguish what type of food. He wanted to eat because that's what the amygdala said. You need to eat. That's the desire for survival and you need to get it. But the prefrontal cortex will help him to distinguish what is proper food, what is not proper food, what is clean food, what is unclean food. Sound familiar? Okay. No, he was all blurred and he went crazy. But the good thing about it is when his transformation happened, when he, of course you can see, he was humble, recognized, he confessed, and then he was transformed. You can read his I think it's a whole chapter in the book of Daniel. He said, let me remember the word. He said, I was able to behold God, and then my reason was returned to me. So he still had his sense of being, but he could not control the rest of it. That's why he was like in a very extreme form of OCD, if it makes sense. You see what I'm saying? So, yeah, that's why he said, when I turned to God, then my reason was given back. That's exactly what the Bible says. Got it? God's restraining power. Another example we have about this conflict is Paul. Remember he said, the good that I want, I don't do. But the evil that I don't want, I've already done it. That's another example to show you the fight between the amygdala. His amygdala is like fighting hardly with the prefrontal cortex. This is the example what in the beginning says, hopefully we are in the end. Yes, I will put enmity between you and the woman, your seed. Yes, there's so many examples to extrapolate on that. We can also use prophetic view to see Jesus into that. But I'm saying at an individual level, that is the enmity you are battling right now. It's your passions against your reasoning fighting the strongest battle you can ever live. Paul showed us, Nebuchadnezzar, and many, many other examples. You will see Samson, you'll see Solomon, you will see, imagine Solomon. Think about it. The smartest man ever alive, reason dethroned by passion. Does that make sense? So only God's power has the ability to get your mind back together. We lose our mind when we are away from God, but when we have God, it's almost impossible to lose our mind. In conclusion, let me stop with a law of the neuroscience is called Hebb's law that say what wires together fires together. That's what neurons do. They wire and they fire. But Ellen G. White has a thing that equates with that. They say, by beholding you are changed. Right? Whatever you see changes your view and your perspective. But more importantly, I want us to remember this. On Psalm 139, verse 14, say, I praise you, Lord, that I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful, and I know that fully well. We are very, very well made. We are very complex beings. God made us in a special way. Therefore, let's take time to study about ourselves and how we can be placed in God's position, in a position that God can restore His image in us. That's my prayer for everybody.